You're listening to the Classic Gamers Guild podcast.
Hello and welcome back to the Classic Gamers Guild podcast. I am back again with Anna. How are you doing this week, Anna?
Pretty good. I'm enjoying the shift into spring weather, getting out in the garden and getting things done.
Oh, nice. I would like to say that I'm enjoying the shift into spring weather, except it only just shifted about an hour ago. And here I am, not out there enjoying it. Because, I'm not even blaming the podcast for that. I'm just saying that I would not be allowed to be out there enjoying it.
That's what you get for living in Ottawa.
I was recently thinking about, I forget exactly how I got onto this train of thought, but I was kind of thinking about how, I was playing a game. It might have been Skyrim. And I swear I was only anywhere from about 30 minutes to an hour into the game. And I was trying to reacquaint myself with the controls. And I ended up on a statistics screen that kind of showed me, basically what I had done so far. And I'd already flat out murdered 20 people, inside my first 30 or 60 minutes. So I was wow, gee, I feel like I hadn't done anything except go from one town to another. And I've already straight up killed 20 human beings. They were bandits, but there was no chance for reform or rehabilitation. I just drove my sword through them and killed them and left them on the side of the road. So I'm this is just kind of what we accept as normal. We never thought about this before as maybe I shouldn't do that, or maybe there's peaceful ways to go about this. And sure, there are some games where there are pacifist methods of running through them, but generally first impulses are this person is standing slightly in my way and therefore I am going to murder them and end their 20 years of life and their connections with friends and family that they have accumulated in that time. So it got me thinking on just the inherent violence and sociopathy and psychopathy that goes into playing video game protagonists. And I was starting to wonder, are there any really good, solid video game role models? They're heroes. They're people that we kind of look to as cool and possibly even inspire us. But are there any really good role models that kind of just really show us how we should best lead our lives? I am going to say right away, I'm disqualifying characters in role-playing games because they're basically played however we want them to. I mean, defined characters, part of a narrative, who are intended to be a certain defined character that does not, that basically exemplifies how we really should strive to exist in society.
Oh, so not just how I think I would like my role model to be, but perhaps how a person should be a role model to more than just myself personally.
Well, there's going to be a little bit, it depends on your personal values as well. Obviously, a big factor in this is that maybe they should be a role model to you, or maybe they should somehow uphold values that you uphold. Everyone has different ideas as to what the ideal person existing in society should be. You can define the criteria by which you determine somebody's value as a role model. But I'm basically saying that, as long as you can justify it, then, it's basically your opinion.
Well, there is a lot of gray area out there, let me tell you, when thinking about heroes in video games. You're there's heroes and there's heroes of the game. And maybe that doesn't always align to be the same thing.
So most of mine are really just kind of disqualifiers of people who might be fairly of notable video game characters that I don't think should be considered role models, even if they are kind of good characters. And that's another thing which I'm going to distinguish in my pick, is a difference between a role model and just a good character. Yeah, there are really good, interesting characters. That doesn't necessarily make them role models, and that's okay. They don't have to be. Sometimes they're good because they're not, like Duke Nukem, right? Not a role model, but you could still admire him, and possibly, maybe if you're that kind of person, you might aspire to be more like him. But let's just face it, he's not a role model, nor do you really want him to be. And I think the appeal is that he is the anti-role model, and that's kind of why people like him so much. So, Sorry. There's one other thing. I mean, well, my entire list is going to be about disqualifiers more until I finally get to one person I'm actually going to pick. But the other thing which I'm going to say is definitely a hard no, is any characters that has been adapted from TV, movies, books, comics, or whatever else. They have to be a video game original.
Right. Lisa Simpson is out. Got it.
Yes. So you can't just choose obviously a lot of our fan base is going to be very Sierra oriented. You can't choose King Arthur. You can't choose Robin Hood, right? Because those aren't video game originals. Even though they're awesome characters, they're from awesome games.
But I could pick Leisure Suit Larry, but I won't.
Yeah, I mean, under the criteria of original video game characters, yes, Larry would qualify. In terms of a role model, I'm going to be a bit of a hard sell on that one.
Fair enough.
So those are most of my qualifiers, but there's a few others I'll use as specific examples, and I guess I'll start by disqualifying. I'll refer to him or her generically as the Pokemon trainer, because a lot of people might be tempted to consider this person a role model. I say person because, you can choose the gender of the character. So I'm going to go gender neutral in referencing them. And people might be inspired by them because the TV show, adapted from the video game, has a very inspirational theme of wanting to be the very best like no one ever was. And these children, generally in the area of about 10 years old, go out and over the course of an afternoon, become the greatest at what they do, having zero experience beforehand. So, basically you can break through glass ceilings and that kind of thing. That's really kind of cool. I would disqualify as a role model because they are basically cockfighters. They're doing none of this by themselves. They're depending heavily on capturing cute little animals, sometimes not so cute, granted, but basically capturing animals from the wild and forcing them to do battle on their behalf, quite often causing great damage to their pet, the other person's pet, and quite possibly the area around them. The Pokemon trainer goes through challenging everyone, including little kids or elderly people, beating them, gambling, taking their lunch money. And yeah, generally you're not supposed to be doing this kind of stuff. You want to strive to be the best? Go for it. Maybe strive to be the best at something else.
Yeah, because that's at the age when most 10-year-olds would be perhaps collecting bugs in a jar, or maybe attacking maybe getting a wasp to fight a spider. This is a whole new level of anti-hero.
Yeah. And, you and I are of the same age. You might have a similar experience to me where the parents did just kind of raise us just by saying, okay, here, we'll be home at 6. Just take care of yourselves for a while. So, I relate to the whole Pokemon mentality of here's a toy, go out and play and come back when you're the champion of the world. I never excelled at anything, so maybe in that sense I can't relate to the Pokemon trainer, but when it's take your pet rat that happens to be red and give them a flamethrower and torch the other kids' pets. It's maybe don't do that. And I mean, even if you take the details away, basically what it boils down to is you want to be the best at being a coach. You're not the one who's doing anything other than telling other people or other things what to do and letting them do all the dirty work, and then you take the glory for it. Sure, if you want to be a football coach, that's great, I'm sure. And football coaches get a lot of fame and fortune, I'm sure. But I don't know. As a role model, I think you could do better than that.
Yeah, I mean, was the game adapted from the cards? Do you know? Did the cards come first?
Oh, yeah. The franchise began as Pokemon Red and Green, a pair of video games for the original Game Boy, later released outside of Japan as Pokemon Red and Blue. It became a media mix franchise adapted into various different media. So it did, in fact, start as a video game.
Good.
So
I just know my kid used to collect the Pokemon cards, but this was back in 2000, right? So that was after.
Oh yeah, Pokemon is huge. Like the card games could possibly be in the competitive field could possibly be even bigger than the actual video game. But no, in this case, no, Pokemon do qualify as video game originals. They just fail as role models by their own merits.
Because they're just assholes.
Yeah.
Eventually they want to be like college football coaches. That's kind of like pre-training for that.
Yeah, exactly. You get it. You get what I'm saying.
Totally. Yeah, I like that pick in the same way I don't like that pick, because definitely not a hero there. I like your twist.
Yeah. So I since I'm going through the disqualifiers, and since I know you actually have some legit picks, I'm going to go through basically just a couple more because I don't really have a whole heck of a lot to say on them. So let's get them out of the way. As I've explained, characters who are just sort of inclined towards destruction and murder, generally disqualified. So, like Nathan Drakes of the world, stuff like that, who just sort of like crack wise after like mass murdering people. Yeah, generally not that. Samus Aran. Yeah, we can think she's a cool character, except that she like destroys entire planets. Maybe don't do that. Her impulse is generally to kill the indigenous fauna that just happens to be in her way. It's like, they're the ones who just happen to be there because that's their ecosystem, and she just goes around like launching missiles at them. Like, that's not what you do.
Even the ones that aren't going to bother you. You want that energy orb so bad.
Yeah. Like, maybe don't do that when you go into a new world that's not yours. Maybe you should have a little bit of respect for nature and ecosystems of other planets and not just assume that everything deserves to be wiped off the face of that planet before blowing up that planet.
Yeah, just because you can shoot things doesn't mean you should shoot things.
Rounding off my Nintendo list here is Mario, because a lot of people pick on the fact that Mario is kind of, there's that theory that Princess actually wants to be around Bowser, and Mario just is a dick who just is kind of jealous and tries to take her back. It's like, one way or another, it's Bowser who has the princess, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, whether or not she wants to be there, maybe she is just hanging out with her buddy, right? And maybe Mario is just that over-possessive boyfriend who like finds out that she has a guy friend, kicks down Bowser's door, blows up his castle, dumps him into lava, takes her away. And prior to that, he like murdered his family. Like, he killed all of his kids.
Everybody he's ever known.
Yeah. Just because he got jealous that Princess Peach wasn't home for him when he got back from work.
All of the plants they were harvesting in Mario too. Like, that was probably all the money that fed everybody in the kingdom for the rest of the year. And he just pulled up those coins like they were nothing.
And anytime he comes across a turtle, he steps on it, takes a shell, and throws it at other turtles. Don't do that. Like, I'm sorry. I don't know what you're trying to teach kids, but teach kids not to do that. So, I mean, don't get me wrong, I love Mario, or at least the first 4 games I loved Mario. But, I mean, I'm just saying, I'm not saying they're not great games. I had a ton of fun. I'm not legitimately offended by any of this. I'm just saying, in terms of role models, maybe take your beef with the guy you have a beef with and, like, not murder his children in revenge.
Well, in most of them, I mean, outside of the booze and stuff, they're not even chasing you. They're like literally walking a prescribed path, and you're like, man, I'm going to get in your path. Oh, what? You're in my path? I'm going to kill you. And then that's it. And they're gone, and they don't even get extra lives every time, right? Well, maybe they do if they come back after you die, but still, it's not very nice.
No, it's not. They're just there doing their thing.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one, just because, like I said before, we are catering to a very Sierra-oriented crowd. So I am not going to say Roger Wilco. I think he is kind of disqualified because he's a great character. But as I wish to establish, a great character doesn't necessarily mean a good role model. He is lazy, he's an underachiever, and he just kind of lucks his way into success.
Yeah, he's a bit of a hapless one.
Yeah. So, and again, I think Larry Laffer is kind of an obvious disqualifier as well. But basically, those are my picks for video game characters who are not good role models.
Well, all of my picks are, can you really say any of them are good role models? Like, all of my picks are within gray areas, I would have to say. First, I went with Laura Bow because she's a great example of how to record and report.
Yes. Yeah, I did consider her for a second when I was thinking about who should be a good role model.
And she has a lot of common sense for a girl who is only 20 years old, right? I mean, she's probably not had the easiest upbringing, being from New Orleans, and she lost her mom at a really young age, so she's had to do a lot of thinking for herself. I'm sure she's probably spent a lot of time sitting back in life, watching, listening, and observing. So by the time this whole bunch of shenanigans started up, she was well prepped for it.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. I always forget how young Laura Bow is, or especially at the time of Colonel's Bequest, and probably not that much older by the time of the Dagger of Amun-Ra. But I guess because I played it when I was so young, I was probably like 10 or 11. So a 20-year-old when you're 10 or 11 is really old. So I always regarded her
like
as being
adult.
quite a bit more mature than, now when I'm 40 and she's half my age, now it's sort of like, wow, she was just a kid.
Yeah, how did she get so much younger in this video game? Jeez. So, I guess, so she ends up in a place where everybody's acting kind of weird, and she realizes that she really needs to pay attention.
Sorry, do you qualify acting really weird as dying?
Well, okay.
You weren't acting like that
acting
earlier.
Suspicious.
This is uncharacteristic of you.
Yeah, all of a sudden you're
Make up your mind. Do you want to be alive or dead or what? Like, seriously, pick something and be really consistent.
And the reason I can't say she's entirely a hero, and that's just it, is everybody did end up dead, because she didn't go around saving anybody per se in the game. But she noted everything that happened so that all of the deaths will be effectively reported at a future time.
Yeah, that was, and that's what I both love, and also it kind of gets me about that game, is this sort of like, you really don't do anything to stop anything that's going on. You basically just, finally, towards the end, you're like, yeah, that guy did it.
And that only happens if you deduce things properly at the very end.
That's true too.
And make the right choice. Otherwise, you end up making the wrong choice, and then you leave, and you're like, "Did I solve that? I kind of did, right?" And then you go home, and you're a little bit unsettled, and might not have gone the right way.
Worst vacation ever.
What did you learn from this? I'm still processing.
The food was good. I got a dinner out of it.
So as a heroine in a game, though, she did teach me a lot of things. She taught me to always pay attention to where I'm walking, because if you walk the wrong way, or perhaps under a chandelier, there are dire consequences. And just because you walked the right way, not under the chandelier the first 50 times, doesn't mean you won't forget and walk underneath it the 51st time. And that's an important lesson to take into real life.
Mm-hmm. And also, she also taught you a very valuable lesson of do not take showers.
Yeah, exactly. Don't take showers. But it's too bad, because when you're handling bodies and chilling in a crypt, taking a shower is probably the first thing you should be thinking of doing. Of course, I guess by that point, you're getting close to the time when having a shower would actually be okay again. So. Mm-hmm. But and she taught me to always make friends with an animal before releasing it from its pen, because otherwise, also dire consequences.
Yes.
That's a very sensible thing to learn. Always pay attention to voices you hear and little cracks in the wall, to be observant.
Oh yeah, just to eavesdrop on people's conversations.
Also, it said in, I think it was in the instruction manual, that Laura Bow found Jeeves kind of handsome, even though she didn't trust him. So I don't know, maybe she had a few issues going on if he's the one that she picked out of everybody else in the house.
Who else would she have chosen?
Yeah. I mean, selection wasn't really that great. The horse, I guess. But and a nod thinking about Laura Bow. I mean, another heroine from a game is Nancy Maple. She's the daughter of Irish immigrants, and she was raised up in a tougher part of Toronto. And so not exactly New Orleans, but like a totally multicultural city. It had a lot going on. She's just this cute, tiny thing. She's also in her early 20s. Mm-hmm. So I think you could really admire another look, listen, and learn kind of a girl. Right?
I will reserve judgment on that until the game is complete, because I don't know what she's going to do later on in the game. I'm not saying this to disparage anything. Obviously, I'm a big supporter of that project, but it might be a little too early to tell right now. Who knows? What if what if it does become a murder mystery and the twist is that it was Nancy Maple all along? We don't know that. Look at all those people who named their kids Daenerys after Game of Thrones. And they're like, oh, I'm sure nothing can go wrong with this, even though the story has not concluded.
Yeah, this will be a very good decision.
Yeah, I'm going to name my kid Khaleesi, because no way this could backfire.
Yeah, well,
she'll be a great role model.
Yeah, tattoo the name right here. It's perfect. Well, as far as I can see, and even if in the end she ends up being the murderer and kills absolutely everybody, I will still admire her for her gumption and go get it attitude and her ability to fool so many for so long.
Very well. I am not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying that I'm reserving judgment for now.
I'm going to continue rolling right along since you threw a whole bunch of years out there.
Of course, I'm tapped out until the very end.
Yeah, good. So I'm just going to keep going. So next up on my list, I've got Rosella, another gray area hero.
Mm-hmm. Another one who I knew that you were going to pick, and therefore I left alone.
She taught me something that I kind of already knew, but I didn't realize it was for everybody. Now, it starts on a beach when I was about 7 years old and out with the class, and I had not played King's Quest, and I was the only kid out there that would play with the crabs and the worms and all the creepy crawly bits and pieces out on the beach and the forest. And I always thought, well, maybe I'm kind of weird because I'm a girl that'll play with worms and I'm not squeamish about this stuff. And when I got King's Quest and I was about 9 or 10 years old, and Rosella was just more than happy to walk out and pick up a worm that a bird had been munching on. So this is clearly an injured worm. This isn't even an intact worm, right? And she's able to like pluck it out of the ground and put it in her pocket. I knew that I was cool.
So she's a good role model because she is a woman with pockets.
She's got pockets and she can put a worm in it. That's everything I would ever aspire to be as a female.
Oh, the things that we take for granted.
I mean, this girl, she can play piano. I used to love playing piano, so I looked up to her for that reason and still do. She will sneak into somebody's house and clean, and my theory is it's because she wasn't able to clean her own house as a kid because she was really rich, and her parents were like, you can't clean, you must take a scented bath and then, rest. So as soon as she got out in the world, she's like, wow, this is like the messiest house I've ever been to. And she gets right in there and cleans it until she's thoroughly satisfied. And I respect a woman who doesn't care about societal norms and does what they need to do to be satisfied with it.
Mm-hmm. Got to break the chains of the societal norms by being a woman who cleans the house.
Yes. Exactly. And I mean, she's, you said you couldn't pick anybody who was the hero when it's you, like in an RPG. So I couldn't pick the actual hero and say I admired him for petty theft. So I can say I admire Rosella for petty theft. I mean, she will happily steal from Cupid. She'll actually steal a unicorn from the forest. Who are you stealing from there? I don't know. Mother Nature? Like, I don't know, but I would consider that a theft, even if it's not recorded on paper.
I'm sorry, whose side are you on right now?
I'm heavily on Rosella's side. I really respect a woman who will do anything to help her family. She will let nothing stand in the way.
Go.
You watch an action movie and a guy will he'll kill 150 people and take down a criminal organization to get a key code to get laid or something. So this girl, she just wants to save her dad.
Yeah, I'll definitely admire that.
And she's a total badass.
Yeah, we'll assume that wasn't just inherent in her nature, where she's just like this entitled royalty who just feels that everything belongs to her. We'll just go with, I would not normally do this, but I must to save my family.
I think so, because she's not even enamored with wealth or diamonds. I mean, she doesn't care about that sort of thing. She's willing to give it up. Maybe because she's ridiculously rich, and a little bag of diamonds is like pittance to her, and she's just like, I don't even care. I hadn't thought about it this way. But she's really tough. She will scare the trees away with an axe with no second thought. She gets swallowed by a whale, and instead of freaking out, she's totally chill about it, right? She'll keep trying and trying and trying again. For some of us, trying to climb the tongue of the whale, that was like for days. That's persistence. I mean, I can't think of a quality she didn't teach me. She is more than happy to turn somebody down just because they're a prince or somebody important. It doesn't mean that she's going to run off and sleep with them or even give them a second glance, really. I think to me, she almost, like Edgar might have had more of a chance with Rosella if he hadn't had transformed into a prince. Like in my head as a kid, if he'd have stayed as like the lowly Edgar, she could have maybe had like a pity fondness for him, and they might have had more of a thing.
Possible. You tell me. I don't know how.
If I knew how women thought, I don't know. I date men because I know how they think better than how women think. I'm clueless, even though all my picks are so far actually women.
Which I admire. I actually do agree with Rosella. I just didn't want to take her away from you.
Don't take my Rosella away from me. Well, I appreciate that. Thank you very much, Rick. So, do you want to go into your last one before we carry on, or do you want me to?
Sure. I'll get in my last little thing, just because I also want to throw in that I did not. On the topic of Rosella, I do like Rosella. I did not really consider any other characters from King's Quest just because, like I said, I did not play a whole heck of a lot of them. I played the first two. They were cool. King Graham, I'm sure, has a lot of role model traits. If anyone wants to make an argument for King Graham, I'm not going to argue against it. I just sort of I never really thought of him personally on a personal level. I never thought I want to be like King Graham. So I just sort of, if I'm going to go into honorable mentions, I'm sure he'll be an honorable mention. He does nothing wrong. He's got that, people in the Classic Gamers Guild group always joke about his, about that hot King Graham dad bod, but, that's kind of misusing the term dad bod, which is supposed to be kind of not really that hot. But, for a guy his age, he's pretty ripped. So that's definitely something to aspire to. But I just, like I said, I'm not a big enough fan of King's Quest to really, own the, right to determine him as a role model to myself personally. What I did end up on, and I did have to think about this for quite a bit, because once I got through all my disqualifiers, it was really hard to think of anybody that was left.
There's nothing left, man.
So, I didn't think too far out of the box. Again, I am a real Sierra, born and bred, adventure fan. So I didn't think too far out of that. And, it came down to Sonny Bonds. And I know that police officers are a controversial topic, but I'm pretty sure that we can all agree Sonny Bonds is one of the good ones. If every police officer was Sonny Bonds, we wouldn't have a lot of the problems we have today. He's very straight. He's uncorruptible. He's doing the job because he believes in justice. But justice by the book. He is, he had no judgment towards Marie Wilkins, after seeing that, she grew up to become a prostitute. And that did not faze him at all. Just whatever, that's cool. You did what you had to do, and now if we could be together, that's behind you. Especially at the time when that came out, like the 80s, 90s, that was pretty forward thinking back then, right?
Oh, definitely surprised me.
Yeah, I mean, it's still kind of forward thinking right now. But hey, Sonny had no judgment there. He's just like, yeah, whatever. You're cool. I like you. And, you did what you had to do. Cool. And, he stands for what he believes. He, when it comes down to it, like, he's not just a pacifist. When it comes down to it, he will take out his gun and shoot somebody, if they are a threat to the lives of others or himself. Usually if it's others more so than himself, he'll always know exactly the right level, of physical force in which to escalate a situation in order to diffuse it. And I think he just, he always acts appropriately to the situation and always in the name of good. So I really can't think of anyone who better exemplifies a role model.
No, without a doubt, he's also a worthy partner. He doesn't complain when the chips are down and he has to pull somebody else's load.
We won't go too far into that, but he is there to pick up the slack when there is a lot of slacking.
Yep. Yeah. And non-judgmental guy, he knows exactly how many times and which direction to walk around a car to be safe. And that's something that you can rely on.
You'll never have a flat tire when he's at the wheel.
No, and you won't die because he'll have walked around the vehicle appropriately and specifically.
Yeah. And I think that's about as far as I can do other than making snide comments towards your pick.
Well, my last pick is, now you couldn't really call her a star in a video game. You could call her, well, I guess you could call her 50% of a star in 2 video games with a small featurette in a 3rd video game. But my next pick is Passionate Patty.
Okay.
Yeah, she did a little bit of piano playing in the beginning of Leisure Suit, or the end of Leisure Suit Larry 2, I think. But otherwise, Larry fell for this lovely lady in Leisure Suit Larry 3. And you can really respect a girl that, for one, won't go for a guy in a lounge that isn't divorced, that won't look at her in the eyes first and talk to her appropriately, and then fall so deeply in love with him head over heels immediately that she will chase him into the deepest bamboo forest to the ends of the earth to be with the man that she truly loves. Now, isn't that somebody you can admire?
I do admire any attractive woman who falls for the geeks.
Yeah, and I mean, and passionately, as far as I know,
of course.
As far as I know, they were together long after, at least until the end of Leisure Suit Larry 7. I think in Laugh for Utilities, it was briefly mentioned that she was still in Larry's arms, which, I don't know, that must have been around Leisure Suit Larry 6 time. So, I mean, this is a faithful woman who didn't mind and was more than happy to wait patiently while Larry still went out to the bars and hit on women in the later Leisure Suit Larry games. And she kind of got caught up in the whirlwind that was Larry. I mean, it went from champagne to sleeping together to wake up and he's gone to out like, Larry, and like bras with coconuts in them. And I mean, she had to use almost every single piece of clothing that she had on her body to find her way to her guy. She rode a log, right?
She did,
I mean,
yes.
She did. This woman is really tough. But at the end of, number 5, which, a friend of mine is streaming online right now, I think she ends up in Coursegold and, she stays in the cabin in the mountains with Larry and they have a sweet little home there.
Mm-hmm. It's also kind of interesting because I thought for a little bit, like, I wonder, if it's just kind of one of those casual misogyny things where it's sort of like, and I don't take that to be too harsh of a term. I'm not criticizing like the creators or the designers or anything like this for being bad people or anything like that. I'm just saying, like, maybe as a product of its time, there was like that little casual misogyny of like, oh, the woman's role is to get progressively more and more naked throughout the course of her section of the game. But I was also sort of thinking about it last time I watched you streaming it on Twitch. I was sort of like, maybe I I'm not sure if this is intended or not, but maybe actually the better way to look at it is that she's not going to let her modesty prevent her from her goals. She's not going to be like, ooh, I'm not going to do that because I am a lady and ladies should protect their modesty. It's like, no. Okay, I need to do what I need to do, and it means I'm losing my panties. Here we go.
It's true. She'll roll with it because, to make money when they lived up in the cabin, she couldn't really go out and about and do stuff or sing at a club. So she ended up running her own sex line called Passionate Patty's Touch-Tone Ecstasy line to make money on the side. So she always knew how to take care of herself.
Was that before? Like, when did that take place? I'm not up to date on the lore of Leisure Suit Larry. Was that something in her past, or is that something she does like after the events of Leisure Suit Larry 3?
That's after. That's sort of during the events of Leisure Suit Larry 6 and 7. Now, fortunately, I was able to catch an interview that she had with Al Lowe back in the day, and she was able to give a little bit more information about how she was able to keep her man in line and, keep the household running at the same time.
Oh, okay. I was just wondering because I almost wouldn't even put it past Sierra to actually set up the line and charge people to call in.
I would totally call that. Yeah. I would call to talk with Passionate Patty. For sure.
Are there any final thoughts on video game role models? Like, I kind of did all like the whole establishing the premise, but is there any thoughts that I may have missed, or if you want to dispute, or is there any other thoughts that you might have in regards to what would be or what would make a video game role model?
Well, I guess for me, it had to be somebody that I identified a little bit with, and I identify with gray areas. I'm not always sure, am I lawful good? Am I chaotic neutral? I mean, I don't even really know. And being morally ambiguous is kind of something that I personally admire in a lot of these characters, and maybe it would work better if, like these characters, I had a save and restore function in my real life, and I don't. So maybe I look at these crazy gray areas that they delve into as places where I can learn from their mistakes and their successes without actually having to dig in graveyards and open a Pandora's box myself.
Gotcha. Well, and I think that wraps this topic up quite nicely. Tell us what you think, dear listeners. Who would be your video game role models? Again, original video game characters, not adapted from previous media. Not characters who are role-playing game characters that you basically define. Who are the people that are worth noting, or the people that we mentioned either pro or con that you disagree with? Let us know if you disagree or agree or whatever. Just, reach out to us. Let us know you're there. Rate our show, good or bad. Find us on Facebook. We're a page and a group. We're on Twitter at the CG Guild. We're on Instagram at CGG Podcast. And if you'd like to support the show, you can find us on Patreon if you look up Classic Gamers Guild. And if you'd like to send us love or hate letters, you can send them to me at mail@classicgamersguild.com. You want to close it out?
Sure. If you're going to open Pandora's box, for God's sakes, save first.
Yes, save. And don't do opening Pandora's boxes.